Welcome back to the daily debate. You're still watching us here, and our guest just joined us in the studio. I'm very much delighted to have Dr. Nancy Hady, international relations expert. Thank you very much for coming in for the debate. Of course, we're talking about the TCAT-7, but before we resume with that, going back again to the top stories we have spoken about earlier concerning the press release that has been issued by the National Organization for Social Insurances concerning the pensions and how it is calculated. To further clarify that, we are joined over the phone with consultant to the Minister of Social Solidarity, Mr. Omar Hassan. It's going to be in Arabic. Please bear with us. I will translate his statements live on air. مساء الخير يا فندم.
مساء الخير يا فندم، اهلا بيك.
سيادة المستشار، احنا كنا عايزين نعرف من حضرتك قريت البيان الصحفي اللي صدر النهارده عن الهيئة القومية للتأمين الاجتماعي ازاي؟
بص يا فندم، هو طبعا احنا هنتكلم عن موضوع العلاوات الخاصة ومطلب اصحاب المعاشات في ضم 80% من 5 علاوات الأخيرة لمعاش الأجر المتغير. ده كان الحكم المرفوع من أصحاب المعاشات، والحكم ده صدر في فبراير 2019 حكم المحكمة الإدارية العليا كحكم نهائي بات في موضوع العلاوات الخمسة. الحكم صدر وقال ان انت ما تديش العلاوات الخمسة 80% منها، وقال عيد تسوية معاش الأجر المتغير. طبعا احنا تسوية معاش الأجر المتغير ده بيتسوى على الأجور المتغيرة ومدة الاشتراك المتغير. الحكم لما صدر قال عيد حساب المعاش بان انت تحسب المعاش على العلاوات الخاصه بواقع 80% من قيمتها. لو انا طبقت الحكم بالشكل ده كده هيترتب عليه انتقاص المعاشات، لان انا بسوي معاش الاجر المتغير على اجور المتوسط بما فيها العلاوات الخاصه بكامل قيمتها، اي بواقع 100%. فطبعا احنا رحنا للجمعيه العموميه لقسميه الفتوى والتشريع في مجلس الدوله عشان تقول لي رايها ايه في الحكم. قالت ان الحكم ده انت تعيد تسويه المعاشات، وخلي بالك بقى الناس اللي انت مسويها بواقع 100% دي تسويه صحيحه وما تخفضش معاشاتهم، بس ما تضيفش لمعاش الاجر المتغير 80% من قيمه العلاوات الخاصه. وبالتالي اصحاب المعاشات ما لهمش حق في قيمه ال 80% من العلاوات الخاصه اللي بتضاف على معاش الاجر المتغير وفقا لحكم الاداريه العليا. والناس اللي هي اصحاب المعاشات الحاليين اللي احنا مسويين معاشاتهم على 100% من قيمه العلاوه الخاصه ما تخفضش هذه المعاشات. معنى ذلك ان المعاشات اللي بتصرف النهارده لصاحب المعاش لن ينتقص منها شيء ولن يزاد اليها شيء. ده بالنسبه لتفسير الجمعيه العموميه القسميه الفتوى والتشريع لما ورد في حكم المحكمه الاداريه العليا الصادر في فبراير 2019.
تمام يا فندم. سيادة المستشار عمر حسن consultant to the Minister of Social Solidarity، شكرا لحضرتك على مشاركتك معنا في برنامجنا. So briefly, what I asked consultant Omar Hassan, the consultant to the Minister of Social Solidarity, concerning the press release that was released earlier today concerning the or issued by the National Organization for the Social Insurances concerning the pensions. He had stated that according to the decision that was already established back in February 2019, that press release that was issued earlier today by the National Organization for Social Insurance concerning the decision of the General Assembly, back in February 2019, of the Fatwa and Legislation section of the State Council, in addition, of course, to the special raises within the variable wages based on which the variable wage pension is calculated, whether it was 80% or it's supposed to be 100%. Well, today there was a final decision by the organization that actually clarifies that what was stated in the decision of the General Assembly of the legislation and the fatwa section is in line with what the National Organization for the Social Insurance is actually doing, which means it calculates the special raises that were not included in the basic wage in the calculation of by 100% and not by 80% as stipulated by the ruling which was referred to. So there is no or there are no pensioners for whom the organization has not added the special raises to their variables wages, based on which the variable wage of pension is being calculated, which confirmed the decision of the General Assembly today that the plaintiffs or the other pensioners whose rates have already been added by 100% to variable wages when calculating the variable wage pension will not benefit from the ruling that were referred to. So that's basically what consultant Omar Hassan, the consultant to the Minister of Social Solidarity, clarified according to the press release that was issued earlier today by the National Organization for Social Insurance. Back again to TCAT 7 that is ongoing in Yokohama in Japan, and how that is benefiting the entire African continent, and the importance of the Egyptian participation in this summit. Dr. Nancy Hady, International Relations Expert, thank you once again. Thank you for your patience. Egypt is heading the African Union, and the African Union has an agenda, a 2063 agenda on the long run, and there's a short vision of the 2030, which both stipulates reaching sustainable development and has certain aspirations or goals. Now, Japan is going to be contributing in this strategic partnership to help the African Union reach its aspiration. How is that being interpreted through TCAT 7?
Yes, well, TCAT and the TCAT conferences in general, or summits, which started some 25 years ago, was Japan's commitment to the development of Africa. In meeting with the African leaders and the chairman of the African Union, our president, Abdel Fattah Sisi, was again reinforcing that commitment to helping Africa develop as a continent and reach sustainable development. So, as you said, in the short term, the 2030 vision, as well as the 63
sustainable development, yes.
Sustainable development vision, which is based on 7 aspirations, which Africa would like to, this is the Africa we would like to see. So on the short run, of course, it's all the African countries are more or less committed to the UN Sustainable Development Goals and have integrated that into their own national development programs. But on the long-term level, in terms of the Africa we would like to see, is looking at an Africa that is self-sufficient, that is developing, that is interconnected, that is providing a high standard of living for each citizen, that is a more peaceful continent, for us to be able to access our rich resources, which are both natural resources and human resources. Being able to put people to work, being able to empower youth and women. I mean, it's again, building on, but at a long-term sense of the Sustainable Development Goals, but even taking it even further. So yes, looking on for the time being, looking at the triangular support, like between Japan, Egypt, and Africa, you know, looking to countries like Japan, not only as a government through JICA to help support our projects, but even through private foreign direct investment, private companies coming, investing in energy projects, infrastructure projects, education, health, all those, aspects of our development that are essential in order for us to be able to even, move ahead. So infrastructure, for example, is a big part of it. If we are to expand intra-trade, intra-African trade, so we need proper roads, we need proper, like the possibility of having a Pan-African train, these things, so that products can easily move across borders. So we're able to utilize to the fullest extent the free trade agreements.
That's exactly what I was wanting to ask you, because when I spoke about Egypt not just chairing the African Union, but Japan looking to the African Union as the voice of the entire African continent, here we are looking on 2 perspectives. Not just the bilateral one-to-one interest between Japan and each African country individually, but on the greater umbrella or the greater picture of cooperation between all the African continent. And that would require partnership and deals and free trade zones and proper linking transportation system between those African continents continent to be able to attract investment. So how is that going to be applied from your perspective?
Yes, absolutely. You're absolutely right. In order to attract investors to come to the continent of Africa, yes, we have to kind of set the stage like what we see in most of the African countries. I mean, Egypt as an example, you know, restructuring its investment, you know, framework, investment laws, looking at improving or increasing incentives for investors to come and invest directly in the country, looking at the mega projects that have been developed, including energy projects and, you know, agricultural projects and so on and so forth. So, I mean, yes, I mean, setting the stage so that you are encouraging investors to come for the long run, that they're able to come and to be part of the development of Africa. But the goal in the long, you know, picture here is that Africa should be self-sufficient. So yes, triangular support initially, but then at some point South-South cooperation. So as a developing continent, as developing countries, for us to be able to benefit from industrial or developed countries, yes, absolutely, we can develop. We can benefit a lot from their know-how, technology, the resources they have, and helping us access our resources. But in the long run, we would like to be self-sufficient as a continent. So we'd like to be developed to the extent that we can actually not only be providing a better standard of living for our own people, but then when we deal with a lot of these countries, we're dealing as partners rather than, you know, as recipients of any kind of support.
Yes, and to get through that, we cannot ignore the importance of empowering women in Africa. Not only is it one of the goals for 2063, but it's also a call by President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi personally. We will be talking about that, but first let's take a look at this report. President al-Sisi met earlier in Japan at the first day of this summit with the Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. Here's the story.
President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi met on Wednesday with Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe on the sideline of the 7th Tokyo International Conference on the African Development, TICAD. Presidential spokesman Bassam Radi said that at the beginning of the meeting, Abe welcomed al-Sisi's current visit to Japan, thanking the president for accepting his invitation to co-chair with him TICAD 7 to promote Africa's development, peace and security through the strengthening of relations in multilateral cooperation and partnership, particularly with the Japanese nation. Shinzo Abe praised the achievements Egypt had accomplished so far in the development process and the tangible progress it had made in its economic reform program, as well as the mega projects it had recently been implementing, noting that the current positive changes in Egypt had significantly contributed to attracting more Japanese investments to its market. Abe also asserted that Japan attaches special importance to its relations with Egypt, especially at the economic and political levels, applauding the pivotal role Cairo plays in the region and the Middle East. According to the presidential spokesman, for his part, President Sisi voiced his keenness to co-chair the TICAD 7 with Prime Minister Abe within the framework of efforts to bolster the strategic relations between Egypt and Japan and contribute to the facilitations and the promotion of high-level policy dialogue between Africa and Japan to fulfill the aspirations of African peoples to enjoy stability and prosperity. Radi said that the expanded Egyptian-Japanese session of talks took up Egypt's effective contribution to efforts to serve Africa through its current chairmanship of the African Union and Tokyo's keenness on working closely with the African countries to help them fulfill the goals of the UN 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda and the African Union Agenda 2063 for inclusive and cooperation to serve this purpose, and reviewed a number of bilateral files related to the progress which Egyptian-Japanese relations are witnessing in the fields of basic education, higher education, culture, technology, energy and transport, in addition to the implementation of the project to build the Grand Egyptian Museum, as well as encouraging more Japanese companies to invest in Egypt.
Welcome back again. You're still watching us here on the Daily Debate. Now, before we went after this report, we were talking with Dr. Nancy Hady, international relations expert, about empowering women. It's one of the goals and aspirations of 2063 African Union agenda. We have a very successful role model in Egypt when it comes to empowering women or youth in general. What's your take?
Absolutely. As you said, I mean, as part of, and a very substantial part of the UN Sustainable Development Goals, as part of also the agenda for 2063, and as part of our national agenda, the empowerment of women is absolutely essential. I mean, for any economy to develop, you must empower women, you must empower youth, because again, this is more than half of your population. If you're not empowering them, and they are taking a very important role in your country and your economy and so on and so forth, so you are not utilizing more than half of your resources. At the same time, with the empowerment of youth, and yes, we have a wonderful example here, as our president has been quite vocal about the importance of the empowerment of women, and has been on the ground, has done a lot to move in that direction in terms of even increasing the number of women in the parliament and number of ministers and other important positions.
Or even taking care of health of women. We've seen many initiatives. Yes.
Absolutely. A lot of campaigns, you're absolutely right, targeting those health issues that affect women, like breast cancer and other, even family planning and those kind of issues. At the same time, with the empowerment of youth as well, because the empowerment of youth, I mean, Africa is a very young continent. So this is something that we are very rich in. But how to utilize those young people need education. They need livelihood, they need employment. So how to create that? So a lot of these mega projects, a lot of these development projects, the objective of that is to create jobs. And where we have JICA and where we have Japan's role here, going back to this conference, is the fact that they have invested a lot, and a big part of their work here in Egypt has been focused also on employment, on education, and big projects that can create jobs for the youth.
Which is going to pour all down to empowering women and, of course, youth.
Absolutely.
They do contribute to a large percentage of the African continent.
You cannot develop a country without the empowerment of both the women and the youth.
Absolutely.
So really, it's essential.
We were still covering up here on Nile International the upcoming 2 days for TCAT 7, currently running in the Japanese city of Yokohama. Dr. Nancy Hady, international relations expert, thank you very much for joining us on the Daily Debate.
Thank you very much for having me.
That brings us to the end of our episode of the Daily Debate. Thank you for watching. The top stories coming up next. I'm Yasmin Bakir signing off. Thank you for watching.